How's everybody doing today? This is Anthony from the Basement Reef. We're a retail aquatic pet store and houseplant shop located in Columbia, Missouri, specializing in saltwater aquarium and rare tropical plants. And today, we're here for yet another unboxing video from one of our favorite saltwater fish wholesalers, Sea-Dwelling Creatures. Now there's a few really neat things in this box today. We have a fairly rare and notoriously difficult to keep angel that I'm super excited to talk about and try my hand at. We have a really neat lobster species that you don't see too often, one of my favorite wrasses, and a saltwater oddball that's super underrepresented in the hobby. I'm super excited to get into this box, so let's quit wasting any time and get right to it. As always, the very first thing we're going to do when we get a shipment like this is get into the box, look at every fish, make sure everything's arrived alright with no problems during shipping, and start floating these things in the aquariums where they're eventually going to go. Now, I know I say this every video, and there's never been a problem, but sometimes there actually is, and in this instance, it's with the fish I was most excited about. This is a multi-bar angelfish, and unfortunately, most of the water has leaked out of the bag during shipping, so we're gonna have to address this guy right away. There's no time to drip acclimate or anything like that. He's gonna have to go right into the tank. Now, this is far from ideal for any fish, but especially this guy, because they're notoriously difficult to keep. They're always labeled as an expert-only fish, but we'll get into a little more detail about him later. We'll let him chill, get acclimated to this new water, and take a look at the rest of the shipment. This fish here is what's known as a hi-hat. You don't see them very often, but I think they're super awesome. They're technically reef safe with a few caveats. One being that they grow pretty large, up to 9 inches, so you need a fairly large tank. And a fish that size can definitely go after some smaller fish, as well as pose a threat to some ornamental invertebrates, like small cleaner shrimp or things like that. But if you have a large reef with large fish, this guy is super awesome. He needs a sandy bottom too, because he likes to comb it for worms, sort of like a goatfish. I really like these guys. Next up, we have an orange spiny lobster. Of all of the dwarf lobsters that are available in the reef hobby, I think you see this one the least, and I'm not really sure why, because in my opinion it's the most beautiful. Like the member of the same genus, the blue spiny lobster, he's specialized to eat clams, so don't put him in your tank if you have a clam. Other than that though, he's incredibly reef safe. I have another member of the genus in my reef tank at the store. Now also, if you have any large fish like a harlequin tusk that might snack on a crustacean of this size, don't put him in there. Otherwise though, he can go in all manner of tanks, much smaller than you'd think that they'd need to. In the end, they add a really unique look to the tank compared to lots of other invertebrates that are commonly available. The last fish that we're going to take a look at before we get back to our angelfish is this yellow-banded possum wrasse. Possum wrasses are a genus of Pygmy wrasses composed of 3 different species. They're definitely the smallest of all wrasses, and they can find themselves at home in a tank as small as 10 gallons. These guys are super awesome, incredibly peaceful, and like larger wrasses, make for great pest control. Given that most other wrasses aren't going to fit in small tanks, you really want to have one of these guys in your tank, and I don't understand why more people don't. They're an awesome fish. You might see those white bands in between the yellow bands on this specimen, and that would indicate that this one's a juvenile. Those will fade out as it grows into an adult, and eventually it'll be a solid pink fish with the eye spots on the fin and the yellow bands. And that takes us back to our multi-barred angelfish, who 24 hours later looks like he's doing just fine. Now, why are these guys considered a difficult fish to keep? Basically because they have a tendency to flat out refuse to eat. As you can see though, this guy is already seeming right at home and pecking some things off the rocks. I also offered a little bit of prepared food at him and had some luck. Here in a second, you're going to see him peck some spirulina brine shrimp right off the floor. He wouldn't pull it from the water column, but once it settled, he was more than happy to. This is great to see, because it means there's a really good chance that we're going to have some success with this fish. Now, when I say it's difficult, I mean that probably something like 95% of greater of these fish that get collected probably don't end up surviving long term in the hobby. Now, should they be collected? Probably not. But this one was, and I want to try my hand at a fish like that at least once. So, fingers crossed that we'll get this guy settled and into somebody's tank. There's a few things that I did to try and make sure that we had the best chance at success too. Typically these will come in from Indonesia, and that's a really long chain of custody, and it's a long time from collection until they finally end up at the store, and they usually come in really emaciated. And for a fish that has a tendency not to eat, that doesn't give you much room for error. This one though was collected from Marshall Islands, which is closer than Indonesia by about half, and you can see that he came in with a full belly. This is great, and I think is going to mean that we have a really good shot at success with him. I'll keep you guys updated. We won't leave this on a cliffhanger. If this fish makes it or doesn't, we'll be sure to let you know. That takes us to the end of another one of our videos. Before we go though, I wanted to make a few more notes about this multi-barred angelfish that I forgot to get to in the main part of the video. A few things that we did to try and be successful with it that I think are working to our advantage and might work if somebody else wants to try and emulate it to try and keep this fish as well. The first thing is that I definitely think that you want to put this fish into a peaceful, quarantine-like environment right off the bat. We made sure that there were no aggressive fish where he landed. In addition though, I made sure to put him in a tank with some fish that may act as a dither fish for him. In this case, some saltwater mollies. Now what is a dither fish? Those are fish that are not going to be scared once they're in the tank. They're going to swim out in the water and tell a fish like this angel that the coast is clear, things are safe, and he doesn't need to worry. Hopefully, the success with this guy continues and he'll continue eating more and more foods and we'll eventually feel good enough to sell him. And if you end up getting him, you're in for a very special fish. Hopefully this video gave you an idea of some things to look out for if you're in our area this week, as well as a really cool look at a really cool angelfish. As always, thank you for watching and please subscribe to our channel. It would help us out a ton.